Welcome to the Debate Drills Academy. This course will analyze the 2021 January public forum topic, which is NSA surveillance of American citizens and legal permanent residents. Previous courses have analyzed positions such as the Five Eyes disadvantage, terrorism disadvantage, the overcollection advantage. This will focus on the FBI disadvantage, to be read by the negative or the con. First, what I'll do is talk through some of the ways that you should use this file and the other drill sets that accompany this course, and then we'll talk through the substance of this argument itself. So as we've emphasized in previous topic analysis videos, you will have the ability to download this evidence set below this lesson. You should, however, not just read these cards in a given debate without doing some of the legwork to really understand them. Specifically, you should go back to the article and cut these cards yourself from the part of the article they're found in. So that way you have a better understanding of the argument. You were really intimately involved in the creation of the evidence, instead of just reading from this file. Better yet, you should read the entire file on your own. And you should read the entire article on your own and try to get a better understanding of the arguments that are made. Or you could even just also look at some of the search terms that are used in these articles and find your own articles that make similar arguments. Use this as a jumping off point for future research and not just a way to read a bunch of cards. So, the FBI disadvantage. This is similar to many of the other disadvantages that we've talked about, in that it establishes that the restriction on surveillance that is created by the affirmative or the pro is much more sweeping than they intend. That it would not just result in not surveilling American citizens or legal permanent residents, but result in further cutbacks on NSA surveillance and hamper a lot of the effective operations that are currently taking place. So while the terrorism disadvantage course focused on the importance of that information for combating terrorism, and the Five Eyes disadvantage course focused on the alliance cohesion that comes from sharing data, this focuses on the ways the FBI benefits from being able to have expansive, unfettered surveillance capabilities, and that restrictions on the collection of data of Americans, for example through restricting Section 702, would severely hamper operations. So let's take a look at some of the evidence. The first piece of evidence is the link card, which establishes the thing that the affirmative or the pro advocacy does that creates the problem that the disadvantage has. So this is the Rangappa 17 evidence, which establishes that placing restrictions on FBI data collection, for example, requiring a search warrant, or restricting 702 collection, fundamentally relies on a misunderstanding of how the FBI operates. So this card goes on to explain how the FBI gets its data to conduct its operations, and why that these restrictions would hamper it. So the FBI uses one database for everything that aggregates information from various government systems, so whether it's the NSA or CIA collection or the FBI's own organic collection, that it's all stored in this one base, the DIVS. That they need to be able to just quickly access all of the data here, as opposed to have to go back to the original collector of the data, some other organization, and get approval. That it would create a bureaucratic mess where they have to make sure, okay, this data was not collected on Americans, right? So we're able to use this. Okay, great. That if they have to go through this long process, that results in massive delays in their collection of data, which hampers their ability to, quote, quickly connect the dots across various cases. So this line is particularly useful. Any restriction will by definition affect every query conducted by the FBI. That really establishes what people refer to as a link magnifier, a reason why any small change will have such a huge effect that it connects to what the disadvantage is talking about. That this says the FBI would have to go to court for every single search its 14,000 agents conduct. So just imagine what this process would look like. If any data that was collected by the NSA on Americans was disallowed, that would mean that the FBI would have to double check that any of the data that it's using was not collected on Americans, was not incidental collection in the process of collecting data on foreigners, which would result in just huge delays to their ability to basically do their jobs or carry out any of their typical functions. So this is even answering a less extreme version of a proposal than what the affirmative or pro defends. This is about probable cause or having a search warrant. The affirmative does not even allow that to happen. They just say, presumptively, any information collected by the NSA on American citizens or legal permanent residents is disallowed. So then we have the impact card that really builds off of some of what this last card was saying about really hampering the FBI's functions. That the bottom of this card discusses why this would prevent, being able to stop, for example, terrorism, be able to do any of the FBI's investigative functions. This page card then establishes a reason that matters, that there needs to be a systematic effort to really combat organized crime, that otherwise it is likely to result in political instability and war, which lines up well with the first card, which establishes the importance of the FBI for being able to carry out its functions. Then we have a second impact within this, which is another FBI impact. This one is not about organized crime, but is about Chinese economic espionage. So it's about the FBI being able to work to deal with espionage, effectively tracing leads that can combat Chinese economic or intellectual property theft. So this line in particular is useful, that every FBI office has espionage cases that lead to China. That it establishes a really good FBI key warrant in terms of being able to carry out investigations successfully. And this also lines up with our link card, because it's not just the existence of the FBI combats espionage. It says their intelligence collection is necessary. And our link evidence establishes that the affirmative or pro results in a really bad effect on the intelligence that the FBI is able to collect. So when we can't access communications, our cases fall apart and the bad guys go free. That it really is about being able to act decisively and quickly to be able to collect intelligence and put together leads. And then we have the impact card to that, about why Chinese, the first card is the card above, the Ray card, established that Chinese economic espionage benefits our adversaries and hurts us in great power competition. The Abramsky card is a reason why U.S. decline foments conflict and makes wars more likely. Fairly generic impact card. So that's our constructive. So as you can see, we have two impact scenarios that stem from the same link, the Rangappa link, which establishes that the affirmative or pro would basically make FBI operations nearly impossible by adding additional hurdles they have to go through that slows down the process and makes data collection nearly impossible. So now we'll look at some of the additional cards that can be read in later speeches to supplement the evidence that was presented in the constructive. These are reasons why US data is key, or why 702 searches are essential. So this Olson card is a spillover argument that establishes that a small restriction is likelier to slow down the process and cascade, leading to further problems. So this is someone who's writing firsthand as the Deputy Assistant Attorney General, who is saying they firsthand seen the effects of having more onerous restrictions on what data can be collected. That even if you were just to have a probable cause requirement, let alone ruling out all types of data that are collected on Americans from the NSA, it would be very challenging to be able to sort through that. You would need to go to court for every single search you were doing, and it would result in overwhelming it. That it says that 702 is currently very flexible, which makes it possible to carry out these operations. Then we look at this next card that is, again, another reason why 702 specifically is key. That it allows the FBI basically broad latitude to carry out their searches currently. That there are some restrictions right now, but not on the FBI being able to use 702. That the amount of data in their database that comes from 702 through the NSA is currently broad. And then another card establishing 702 is key is this next Rangappa card, which says that you need to be able to have information from other cases. For example, other databases like the NSA, that the FBI does not just carry out organic searches, but they get the data from other people. So I would sort these link arguments into two categories. One is a broad spillover type argument that any restriction likely affects the FBI's ability to operate effectively, and the second being a 702 key argument. The FBI relies on the data that is collected from the NSA, and that limiting that data hurts their operations. Thank you, and hope this helps with your debating for this next topic.